Chuck Palahniuk once said, there are only patterns, patterns on top of patterns, patterns that affect other patterns, patterns hidden by patterns, patterns within patterns. I love this quote because the world is made up of patterns. And at Greatness U, we really focus on the mechanisms or the patterns. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that today, that model of how we power change here at Greatness U using patterns and mechanisms. So you'll recall from the last video, we were talking about going from A to ACME, faster and with less effort. Right? So my name's Gina Mollicone-Long, and what we're doing here are ACME videos, videos that help you get to your highest point, faster and with less effort. And we do this all at greatnessu.com. So we're talking today then about the patterns, and we're getting into this process that you see here in front of you. It's very simple. Remember the difference between simple and easy. And so we're getting into this process between simple and easy from A to ACME. And I want to talk to you about the mechanistic patterns. So before I do that, let me define it a little bit. So at Greatness U, we use mechanisms. So mechanisms are like patterns. They are like machines. And so we use a mechanistic model of your mind. Now, that doesn't mean the mind is only a machine. Remember what I said in yesterday's video. Don't believe everything I say. But the reason we like mechanistic models here at Greatness U is, well, first and foremost, you may or may not know this about me, but my undergraduate degree is in engineering, and I specialized in process control. And so obviously I have a very solid understanding of mechanistic models because engineering is very linear. And then one day, you know, after I was done my degree at some point, I was sort of contemplating my love of, of helping people to unlock their greatness or reveal their greatness, like we say at Greatness U. And I kind of realized the mind is like a machine. I mean, it isn't, you know, people sometimes criticize, oh, Gina, the mind's not a machine. I know. I mean, obviously, as human beings, you are so much more than just the inner workings of your brain, right? And my graduate work is in philosophy, where I go completely to the opposite side and explore the really sacred power of the human being and where that comes from, sort of where mind and matter intersect with, you know, spirit. And that's what really gets me out of bed in the morning. But in order to get where you're going faster and with less effort, to reach that ACME, what I found and what we discovered at Greatness U was that it was a lot easier if you used mechanistic models, because it allows you to take something really complex like the mind and distill it into simplistic models that help you. Do they holistically define your brain, your mind, your potential? No. Do they help you perhaps hit an aha moment or have a breakthrough so you can get where you're going faster with less effort? You bet they do. So I want to talk to you a little bit about mechanistic models, and let me introduce you to what we call Greatness U. We figured, since we were going for the ACME anyways, right, because that's the highest point, since we were going for the ACME, I want to introduce you to how we created everything around this word. And so at Greatness U, we have something called the Accelerated Change Mechanisms of Excellence, ACME, right? The Accelerated Change Mechanisms of Excellence. And what that does is it helps you get to your excellence faster and with less effort using mechanistic models. So let me just show you what these mechanistic models are that we use here at Greatness U. Okay, just move this out of the way. Right out of the way. There we go. So we call this the ACME 7. Okay, so at Greatness U, we use 7 mechanistic models. Are these all the models on the planet? Absolutely not. Is this a comprehensive list? Absolutely not. Could you split this up another way? For sure. Is this what we use it because we like 7? We have our acronym Accelerated Change Mechanisms of Excellence to reach your ACME, which is your highest point, and there are 7 of them. So that's what we're going with. So let me just quickly introduce them to you. And then over the course of this video series, the ACME series, we're going to go through and touch on each of the mechanisms. And so the ACME 7 include the process of change, the cycle of results, the performance triad. Those three are very foundational. So in the courses that we teach for high performance coaches and things like that, this is the foundation of performance. Then we have 3 models that are very specific, developed by other people that we are experts in here at Greatness U, and that includes Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP, timeline therapy, TLT, and hypnosis, HYP. And these types of mechanistic models are developed by other people over time, some more modern than others, but basically they're just mechanistic models of the mind that help you get where you're going faster and with less effort. And finally, we wrap this all up at Greatness U with something we call the breakthrough process. And the breakthrough process is helping you break through, right? Get where you're going faster and with less effort. And so we come back to our little diagram here from A to ACME. Okay, and so this is, this breakthrough process helps you get this point. Those of you who've been watching these 2 videos already, you notice there's something going on here at this point. Okay, so that's a significant point. We'll call that the change point or the breakthrough point. Now, before I get into this model, and this right here is a diagram of our first mechanism, which is the process of change. And I'm going to explain that in the next video. In this video, I want to kind of finish off by differentiating one more thing or explaining one more thing that I really think is going to help you put this into context. So what I say is that all change, which happens in an actual instant, the change itself, isn't change until it's become neurological. And change is neurological. And people hear me say this over and over and over again. The reason why I say it is because if you don't have a change in behavior, actual behavior, then you don't have change. You might have talking about change or discussing change. You might have philosophical thinkings about change or opinions about change, but change isn't change until you're doing it in the real world. If it's still up here, it's just thinking, which is an important part of the process, but it's not change. Now, when I say the word neurological, I'm not trying to freak anybody out, and I'm also not trying to pretend I'm an expert in biology, but let me just give you like a very, 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 very rudimentary explanation of what I mean when I say neurological. So it's pretty simple. And I think it doesn't matter what level of education you have, whether you like science or not, I think you're going to get this. So everybody knows we have a brain, right? Easy. And everybody knows we have a body. And I like to call the body your meat suit. And the reason I like to call it that is because I'd like to start to de-identify, because everybody thinks they are their body. Okay, and I think it was C.S. Lewis that once said something about the soul. He said, you don't have a soul, you are a soul, you have a body. So I kind of like the genre of that, right? So you have a body, and so we'll call it your meat suit. So you have a brain, you have a meat suit, and how you move the meat suit around, right? How you decide to raise your hand or lower your hand or whatever, is a signal goes from your brain and it travels through your nervous system. So when I say neurological, I'm talking about the information highway that's inside your meat suit that connects your brain to the rest of your body so that you can do the things that you want to do, the actions you need to take, the behaviors you need to employ in order to get where you're going. And hopefully that's your act. Okay, so that's what I mean when I say neurological. Now, when I say all change is neurological, what I mean is that you have to see the behavior in order to call it change. Otherwise, it's just philosophy or it's just opinion. So I want to use an example, and it's a very simple example, of a baby learning to walk to illustrate what I mean by neurological change. Now, it's important here to note that there are instances of babies who cannot or do not learn to walk, and that is because there's neurological damage. Okay, so when there's neurological damage, then the act of learning to walk is abruptly halted in a human being. So that's an important clue about change and neurology. Right? So you need to have the proper neurology in order to produce the behavior. Okay, so I'm going to use the example of a baby learning to walk because barring any neurological damage or any interference, human babies eventually learn to walk, right? And again, this is not, any commentary. It's just to illustrate what I mean when I say change is neurological. So when a newborn baby is born, right, and you're holding that newborn human baby. So let's go all the way over to here and we'll talk about a newborn human baby. So a newborn human baby, I don't care how positive a thinker you are, I don't care how ambitious you are, a 1 hour newborn human baby cannot learn to walk. It's not possible. And the reason why is there's no neurological readiness there, right? The baby can barely, like the head is, flopping around. There's the fontanelle, like there's a hole in the head, right? Like humans can't learn to walk. Horses come out and they stand, but humans don't. So on that first day, and I lovingly refer to this stage as blob baby, blob babies can't learn to walk. I don't care how positive a thinker you are. It's not possible because the neurology is not ready. Okay, so assuming normal neurological development, there's a point in the baby's development, right, where the baby starts displaying behaviors that it wants to learn to walk. It starts pulling itself up on the furniture. It starts, maybe you put your fingers like this and the baby grabs on and it can do a few steps. And every parent on the planet knows that just because the baby has showed behavior that it wants to learn to walk doesn't mean it can. So the desire is important. And you'll notice that it's not like blob baby's day one and wanting to learn to walk is, 5 months, 6 months, or whatever. There's no time stamp on this. It's based on neurological development. So I imagine there's like a little guy inside with a clipboard, and he's holding the clipboard, and every day he goes through the checklist of things. Is this baby ready to learn to walk? Muscle, this, neurological pathways, balance, blood flow, strength, etc. And one day when that whole checklist is checked off, he goes, okay, we're ready, fire up the signal to learn to walk. Now on that day, fire up the signal to learn to walk, the baby displays behaviors to want to learn to walk, but the baby can't walk. As soon as you pull your fingers out or take away the couch or the table, the baby falls back down. Okay, but it's an important day. Now, somewhere along the lines, the baby will start now trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, trial and error, get up, fall down, refine, refine. And one day, right, boom, the baby will go from the couch to the ottoman or whatever. It'll take 3 Frankenstein-esque type steps. And now the baby has taken its first step. Change has occurred. It's neurological. Now there's a pattern. See, the day before, there were the components for walking, but we didn't have the pattern or the sequence for walking, and now we do. Now, on that day, if anybody has had a baby or knows a baby, think about it. You don't just send your kid off to cross the busiest street in town and you're like, way to go, you're done. No, it's a very new neural network. Now it needs to become the dominant neural network. And so what happens is the baby has to practice the behavior that it's learned, right? So we go blob baby, absolutely no readiness. Then the baby has desire, but they have the components for walking, but they don't walk yet until the day they walk. And once they take those steps, that's once, but now they have to do it until it's dominant. So they can't not do it that way. And at that point, we would call them a toddler. And everybody inside would be all excited because the process is over, and your brain would store that. Baby's brain would store, okay, this is how we walk. And if the baby was a crawler, it would now be able to walk and crawl. And so on that day, the baby can walk and crawl. And so all the resources required for the learning are freed up again. And so what happens is the baby's now operating at its ACME, right? It can walk and crawl. That's the highest point. And so now the resources which were previously employed in learning to walk can be dedicated to something else, like jumping, running, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean when I say change is neurological. It must go through and become a pattern, a habit in the nervous system. And then that habit needs to become dominant for it to be an action that you take on a regular basis. All right, so that's a little bit about what we mean about change in this program here at Greatness U. As I say every day, if you got something out of this video, if you learned something, then please hit the subscribe button. And also make sure to like it, share it, comment on it so that other people can get access to this info, because that's how we do it, right? It gets proliferated the more people engage with it. Visit us at greatnessu.com. That's greatness, capital U.com. And, come in and check us out. Reveal your greatness. This is what we're all about. We're all about teaching people how to get from where they are now to their ACME faster and with less effort. We'll see you at the next video.